The next global war is already happening, not with tanks, soldiers, or bombs, but with bonds, gold, and money. While most of the world is watching military tensions rise in the South China Sea and trade battles between Washington and Beijing, something far more dangerous is unfolding in silence. China is executing a financial strategy to challenge and eventually dismantle the US dollar's dominance over the global economy. This is not a short-term plan. It's a decades-long strategy, and it's working. Welcome to the Silent War, a battle that could decide the future of global power. Since the end of World War II, the US dollar has ruled the global economy. It became the world's reserve currency under the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement, a system that allowed countries to trade, store wealth, and settle debts in dollars. For the US, this meant unmatched power. It could borrow cheaply, print money to fund wars and deficits, and even weaponize the financial system by freezing reserves or cutting nations off from swift payments. But that power came with a cost: dependence. The global financial system, trade, oil, banking, became heavily dependent on the dollar. And that's exactly the vulnerability China wants to exploit. China watched closely as the US used its currency dominance to punish rivals. When Washington froze $300 billion of Russia's reserves after the Ukraine invasion, Beijing understood one thing clearly. If a conflict ever erupted over Taiwan, China's own reserves could be next. So Beijing launched a silent financial counterstrike. Step 1, reduce exposure to US debt. Step 2, replace dollar reserves with gold. Step 3, build an alternative global payment network. Step 4, expand trade in yuan, not dollars. This isn't economic policy, it's strategic warfare. For decades, China was America's biggest lender, holding more than $1.3 trillion in US Treasury bonds. But look at the shift. 2013, $1.3 trillion, 2020, $1.06 trillion, 2024, $759 billion mid-2025, $730 billion, the lowest in over 14 years. Each sale weakens US influence. It forces Washington to borrow at higher interest rates. It increases America's debt burden, and it reduces China's exposure to a financial weapon that could be turned against it. This is China's first major move in the silent war, and it's already changing the global bond market. At the same time, China is buying gold at an unprecedented pace. The People's Bank of China has been adding 20 to 25 tons every month since late 2022. Officially, reserves now exceed 2,300 tons. But experts believe the true figure is 4,000 tons or more. Why gold? Because gold is sanctions-proof. It's not controlled by the US financial system. It's a universal reserve asset that holds value even during geopolitical crises. China knows that if the dollar is a weapon, gold is a shield. And with enough of it, Beijing can backtrade, support the yuan, and even create a future gold-linked reserve currency. But China's plan doesn't stop there. It's building an entirely new ecosystem to bypass the dollar. Trade deals with Russia, Brazil, and the Gulf states are now being settled in yuan. New payment systems like CEPs are being developed as alternatives to SWIFT. And through alliances like BRICS, China is laying the groundwork for a multi-currency reserve system. This isn't science fiction. The US dollar's share of global reserves has already dropped from 72% in 2000 to just 58% today, and could fall below 50% by 2030. The dollar won't disappear overnight, but its monopoly power is ending. This is the new battlefield of global power, one where the weapons are not missiles but monetary policy, not soldiers but central banks. China is playing the long game. By slowly selling US debt, stockpiling gold, and rewriting the rules of trade, it's building a future where America's most powerful weapon, the dollar, is no longer absolute. The silent war is already underway. The question is, will the US adapt or lose the power it's held for nearly 80 years?